Hi everybody and welcome to another piano review here on Merriam Pianos at YouTube. My name is Stu Harrison and in today's video we're going to be comparing the Casio GP-510 Hybrid Grand with Kawai's CA99, an instrument that has got a lot of coverage on this channel and for good reason. So we're going to be talking about the differences in action, tone, features, and really setting up what we think is a good fit for one or the other. If it's the first time to the channel, we'd sincerely appreciate if you did subscribe, hit that notification bell, become part of our ever-growing community of piano lovers all around the world. So without further ado, let's get started with the Casio and the Kawai right away. So if there's a centerpiece to this instrument, it is the action. They have designed not just some of the recording and obviously some of the piano source material that was used with Bechstein, but they've designed the action along with Bechstein as well. Bechstein is known as one of the absolute most accurate and finely regulated actions of anything in the world. They're fanatical about that kind of stuff. So the collaboration was always a point of interest for me because I thought, well, is this, I mean, just how insane are they going to go with this? But they really have gone for something that's equated a true grand piano action. It's not even close to as insane as what you get in, say, the Novus 10, which is literally a grand piano action with the extended keys and everything, like virtually the same thing you would get in, for example, you know, a GX1 or GX2 Grand from Kawai. Of course, Yamaha's Avant Grand is basically the same action that you would find in, say, like one of their GC1 or GC2s. So both of those instruments go well beyond what they have done in terms of really trying to go all in with the authenticity. But let's keep in mind, I mean, this is in US dollars, this is $6,000, which is like half the price of what the Novus 10 is. So all in all, I think they are delivering a really interesting option from an action standpoint for a pretty affordable price. And it feels good. One of the things that I thought needed some improvement the first time around was that even though the concept of the action was really great, I wasn't a fan of necessarily of how they'd regulated it at the factory, and the touch felt a little bit loose to me the first time around. This, on the other hand, actually feels like an acoustic piano. They do a really great job of creating the right weight. I like the repetition speed. I like sort of how the bottom of the key bed feels. There's a nice cushion to it. Really, everything about this feels quite authentic and quite real. It's graded really nicely, so you've got slightly heavier in the bass, slightly lighter in the top. And the key bed on the GP-510 feels firmer than what's on the Kawai. I think it's a slightly harder feel on the key bed than what I am used to, but it's not inauthentic. It just would take a little bit of getting used to, or maybe you're already used to an acoustic piano that has a slightly harder key bed anyway, in which case this is going to feel just fine. The instrument has these peak holes in the top that let you actually see the hammer coming up. And so just in case anyone needed proof that this is actually what's happening on the inside, Casio has provided you with that window of opportunity, all puns intended, to check out what's going on with the action. The key itself is a standard key stick length, so there's no sort of cheating on the geometry. The geometry is pretty authentic. Rather than giving you a full whipping on the inside, the whole thing, basically the top where the, I guess, kind of the knuckle on the hammer would connect to the whipping, and where the the cap stand on the back of the key is, it's just one piece of plastic that approximates that shape. So you don't really have that kind of double escapement thing happening. Anyway, that is my feedback on the key action. The white keys do use a polished white plastic on it. I'm actually not sure why on the lower end models of the Casio they use all of the textured keys that are almost a little bit exaggerated. I kind of point that out in virtually all my Casio reviews. I actually think that the exaggerated texture kind of works for them. It differentiates the product, and after a little bit of oil on the key, it feels pretty good. They use a polished white here. I always like the white key to have just even a slight bit of texture to it. It helps get that right balance between grippiness and slipperiness. So this is a little bit more grippy than I would prefer. You know, that's a personal thing. There's a lot of great acoustic pianos out there that don't use textured keys, and it's not a big deal for you know, many of the people who like it. So again, just more of an observational thing. From a cabinet standpoint, Casio has put some nice brass accents. They've got this huge plate just to remind you that Bechstein was a part of the project. You know, when I first saw it, I thought it was a little bit tacky. I've gotten used to it now. I actually think it kind of adds a nice element of distinction to the instrument. So I've kind of turned the other way. It really doesn't bug me at all, and it kind of reminds me that this has been built with some major piano brains behind it. And then you've got some high quality, they're not actual brass, but they're brass looking pedals, and the pedal function and the kind of the spring tension feels pretty good as well. Casio has used a real polyester spray for the cabinet, so that works really well. And the interface is very easy to also use, so that I appreciate. So that pretty much wraps up our discussion about the GP-510 before we move on to the Kawai CA99, which is very much in a similar type of a price range. And so what are the things that stand out to me the most about this one before moving on? Well, I just love the dynamic weight of this action. I find that it's really quite authentic. I think that for the price point, this has got to be one of the top, top two actions in this price point in the entire market. And I think the way in which they've recorded the pianos and rendered those samples and all of those acoustic engines into the instrument and put them through the speakers almost gives you a hyper-realistic sense of that detail that you kind of even have to tone down a little bit with custom settings when you first get it. But it's there, and I applaud Casio for really putting a product out that I think stands well on its own in a category that really traditionally has always just been dominated by pretty much two companies, Kawai and Yamaha, maybe a third, Roland, within the last 10 years or so. So anyway, we'll get the final spec sheet up there about the GP-510, and we're going to move right on to the Kawai CA99. The CA99 is an instrument that we have reviewed in quite a few contexts on its own in comparison to a few others. This is the first time we've had a chance to compare it to the Casio GP-510. And the reason why I think this is such an interesting comparison is the actions. The action in the GP-510 has a very unique touch that I think in some ways for certain types of playing feels even better, or I should say even more natural than the Grand Feel 3 in the CA99. Not in all cases, but I think it's a very comparable quality of experience. And it's something where if you are in an area, if you are in a city where you've got a retailer that has both the Casio stuff as well as the Kawai stuff or the Casio stuff and say some of the Yamaha Avant stuff, I think you're going to want to try and at least try that Casio if action is your absolute top priority. I think that from a sound standpoint, the Casio presents kind of a very normal offering in terms of the quality of the speakers and the quality of the amplifiers. I think that the samples are really great, but I don't think that it's something where you sit down at the Casio and come away from it going, that is absolutely best in class. I would say that it's a different but a very similar thing. But for the price on the action, you are going to have some people that play that Casio and go, holy, that comes awfully close to what I feel like I could get in, say, some of the Kawai Novus stuff, but I'm able to save a few $1,000s. And honestly, I don't care that much about some of the other features or some of the other connectivity options, which admittedly is somewhat basic or lagging behind some of the other competitors on the Casio. So on the CA99, you have the Grand Feel 3, which uses the same key stick length as what you are going to get in an upright piano, but not what you are going to get in a grand piano. And so the Grand Feel 3, even though it's called a Grand Feel 3, that the dynamic and the static resistance, the overall playing dynamic of this action feels a little bit closer to what you might find on, say, K200 or K300 versus what you're going to find on a GL10, in my opinion. Kawai might come out and kill me for that particular piece of commentary, but it's true. I do think that it feels super like an acoustic, so I'm certainly not trying to say that it doesn't deliver a fantastic playing experience. For me, it doesn't necessarily scream grand when I sit down and play it. It does, to me, feel acoustic. So whatever, take from that what you will. The bottom of the key bed on the CA99 is a little bit softer than what you get on the Casio. I mean, there's a little bit, you can feel a bit more of the felt cushioning underneath your key when you're going down there. And I actually get the sense that the Kawai has a slightly deeper key dip than what you get on the Casio. I didn't measure it, so they may be exactly the same, but sometimes the impression of depth is just as meaningful or just as relevant as whether it's actually as deep. So my impression is slightly deeper key dip than what you get on the Casio. So to me, the biggest comparison point that people really need to be aware of is the action. And so now that we've covered that, we're actually going to take a little bit of a previous review on the CA99 and fill in the blanks in terms of the sound and the components. And we hope that you stick with us for the rest of this comparison between the Casio GP-510 and the Kawai CA99. There are many aspects of the tone, the piano tone of the CA99, which is noteworthy, it's worth exploring. One of them is the fact that in piano mode, which is the default mode in which you can really sit down and enjoy this instrument, it's using an SKEX rendering engine, which is a very similar programming or algorithmic approach to what Roland has done with its V piano and sort of modeling. This gives us unlimited polyphony on the piano side of things. That means we could play hundreds and hundreds of notes, and the instrument is going to continue to be able to just sustain and render and create those tones without ever running out of memory. And it's one of the first times Kawai has released an instrument that actually has that type of technology in it. An interesting comparison that I really like doing is switching back and forth between that non-rendering mode and just a normal digital piano harmonic imaging mode that you would get on other Kawais. And you can do that by switching between the SK-EX Concert Grand in piano mode, where we're getting all of that really crazy new technology, over to sound mode, where then we get SK-EX Concert. So that's the sample-based, individually sampled, and then back to the rendering. And it just seems that there is so much more detail around the edges of the note and in the space between the notes. At least that's what my ear is telling me when I'm comparing those two. One of the advantages that going with a rendering engine or a modeling engine that's basically generating the tone algorithmically rather than drawing primarily on a sample is that there's even more stuff that you can edit. So people who are really into the piano geeky thing like I do, who love playing around with different string resonance settings and getting into the touch curves and all this kind of stuff, you have tons and tons of possibilities to start playing around with that. So if you go into, oh, that's the other menu. So if you go into the editing mode for piano mode, and that's easy, you just literally hit this little bar, and we're going to show you that later in the video where we just take a look at this touchscreen panel, which is really pretty cool and very easy to use. And then we get our virtual technician. And in virtual technician, that's where we get touch curve, voicing, damper resonance, damper noise, string resonance, undamped string resonance, cabinet resonance, key off effect, fallback noise, hammer delay, top board, decay time, release time, minimum touch, on and on and on. You can even get into key volume, half pedal adjust, temperament. I mean, we're talking about the ability to literally go in and custom build exactly the piano experience you want as a piano player. And it's being rendered through a set of speakers and a soundboard that actually allows you to hear the detail and experience all of those edits in a way that very few other digital pianos are capable of doing. Literally the NV5 that Kawai also builds, which would probably be considered the one step up from the CA99, also has that soundboard. And the presence and the warmth that it brings to the lower half of the EQ range of the piano is something that I've never heard a speaker, a normal speaker, really be able to do. It's very extraordinary, the type of presence you get from that soundboard. So we've got piano mode, and we've just talked about the fact that that's going to give you that rendering engine. Outside of piano mode, then you get into a wide range of categories of sounds. And I really love how they've updated this touchscreen menu system to include the categories along the left side. So it's really easy to get into your e-piano sounds. '60s electric piano, which is really whirly. Kind of a DX sound. all of your natural, or I would say common electric piano sounds, but the CA series has a greatly expanded selection over what you get at the CN level. You've also got the organ category, the church organ category, and this I always love pointing out to people on these Kawais with the natural soundboard, because obviously in real life pipe organs don't have soundboards, but there is such a rich low frequency response that comes from a real air-driven pipe organ. And the soundboard on the Kawai is about the only thing I've ever heard that actually gets that resonance and presence on the low end. So that's one thing I would actually really suggest that you check out. Not sure if that's coming through my lapel mic, but the bass that we're getting here live in the showroom off those organs it's just simply astounding. There's harpsichord, and they've actually got two different harpsichord samples. Which is actually worth noting, because the vast majority of digital pianos, and I mean like 95% of them, only have one harpsichord sample, and the second one they include is simply an octave doubler of that first sample. So the CA99 has the one harpsichord, it has the harpsichord octave, but then a genuine second, totally different sample of the harpsichord. So for people who are into performance of Baroque music, Renaissance music, anything where harpsichord is an integral piano, you actually might care about that. We've got all of the mallet instruments, vibraphone, marimba, celeste, pads, bass, guitar. It's really beautifully laid out, and like I said, right at the end of the video, please stick around, because we're going to show you in depth actually how to use that touchscreen, and it really is a good summary of the other features that the instrument has. So let's just sum up what we're talking about with sound. We've got this really amazing limitless polyphony sound engine that's producing the sound tone. This is the SKEX rendering. And it's very lush. It's a very complex tone that it produces. And like I said, when you compare it to the other sample, I think it actually more accurately creates or renders the space around the notes when you're playing notes together than the sample itself does. And then all of that signal is being fed through Onkyo amplifiers that are driving two magnets, the twin drive system on the soundboard, which is just, it's great. It's such a great idea to add to a digital, because one of the things that contributes to the digital sound more than anything is the speakers themselves. So when you can feed that signal through something that creates or sort of gives it more of an organic analog presentation, all the better. And then you've got a series of speakers across the top. I believe these are two-way speakers right there. And the wattage is well over 100 watts for the CA99. So lots of power, lots of clarity, lots of signal processing with the Onkyo componentry that's been added in there. And of course, all being driven by this really outstanding sound engine. In the final section, we are going to be reviewing the features, and really that's going to mainly focus on the control panel, this really cool color touch screen. It's some kind of an Android mini tablet in there, and they've done a great job of updating that from the first generation, which was in the CA98. So once again, thank you for sticking with us. So the home screen menu really shows you, it takes you into a piano mode, because of course I think that's what Kawai is assuming is going to be the primary use And you get a nice kind of swipeable menu from left to right, showing the different options for the acoustics. They've even got some really nice animation effects as you scroll from one to the other. That's a nice job, and it's a big improvement over what it was before. The other thing you're going to notice is some of the most commonly used features, rather than being buried in menus or alternate screens, basically they have shortcut keys to those, such as the metronome function. And so you have a visual of the metronome happening up top, which is great. You also have the option of changing the tempo, the time signature, as well as the volume and the tempo up there. And then an easy, obvious X to get out of that. You can also switch it to rhythm. And you can turn it off very nice and easily. The next menu we're going to explore is if you press the SKEX rendering to get into the sub-menu of the piano itself. Now you get into the piano variation. So we have jazz, clean, concert. So these are basically preset types or rendering types. And then you have and these are rendering type. I believe what these are more or less different combinations of the 22 Virtual Technician presets. I think. I have yet to hear back from Kawai on whether that's more or less what that rendering type in the piano variation is. But I believe that's how it is. And then to really get into the nuts and bolts of all of the settings that you can have, you are going to click Virtual Technician. And that brings up our ability to edit the touch curve, the voicing, resonant depth, damper noise, fallback noise, hammer delay, top board, decay, release time, the minimum touch, stretch tuning, key volume, half pedal adjust, soft pedal adjust. So quite a few options and parameters in there to play with. You'll also notice that you see a record button. I love that they put this here. It's very easy to access, and the use of the record function is very intuitive. So if we go record, then it's on recording standby. As soon as I start to play, it's going to work. And then we press record to wrap up. Do I want to just hear it back? Sure, let's just hear it back. Okay, I liked it, and now we can save it. Test. And now that's saved. And we'd access that by going to the music function, and we'd be able to get our user-saved songs within the music. So we're on piano mode right now. That's what we've been looking at. Now if we go over to sounds, we're going to get a whole other interface. And this is divided into different categories, which is really cool. So this is kind of by genre up top. So this is everything you might come across or might want to play in a pop setting, in a jazz setting, classic setting, recommended. I don't know who's recommending it, but sure, recommended. Recently played, I find that to be a really handy feature. And then all the sounds. When you're on all sounds, and you only get this on all sounds, you get these icons down the left side which show you what instrument category you're on. So this is the piano, then we've got electric piano, we've got organ, pipe organ, harpsichord, those like the mallet instruments, string instruments, choral, pads, bass, and guitar. So really nice, you know, intuitive navigation of those options. If we go over to music, that's where we can see our test piece. But then we can also access the USB music player. We can look it up by composer. So let's say we want some Bach. And this is all the preloaded music that's on here from Bach. Like hours and hours of music. So that might be an interesting way to explore some new music. It's loaded with well over a dozen different lesson books. And then there's the sound demo. And there you can see that there's a little heart there next to quite a few of these things. So anytime you find something that's a favorite, you can mark it with that little favorite icon. And then the final screen is the menu screen. And this is where you've got the ability to set some controls, EQ controls and other sort of spatial controls for both the speaker system as well as the headphone system. So you've got tone control, flat, the wall EQ, which allows you to more or less tweak the speaker settings depending on how close you have it to the wall or what type of flooring it's setting on. Low volume balance, speaker volume, and then spatial headphone sound. Headphone type, so open back, semi-open, open, closed, inner ear. This is intense stuff, and this is all by Onkyo, by the way. Headphone volume and then line-in volume. For hands mode, you've got the Bluetooth settings. We already mentioned earlier that it does both Bluetooth MIDI and Bluetooth audio. We've got your MIDI settings, play MIDI channel, so actually quite intense in terms of the level of detail you have over the MIDI. And then you've got system settings as well, like the LCD brightness, display scale, the startup screen. So that's kind of a deep dive into the control panel on the CA99. Like I said, on its own, really quite the centerpiece. I think they've done an exceptional job of taking their experience with the first generation as well as feedback from the user community and really executed well on a fantastic user interface. I don't think it's a stretch for me to say that this is probably the best designed user interface I have ever experienced on a digital piano in my life. So thanks everybody for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed this comparison between Kawai's CA99 and Casio's GP-510. We hope that you will check more videos out on the channel, as well as hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll be notified every single time we come out with a new video. Here is one last feature sheet on the CA99. We will see you back for more videos shortly.